All right. Good morning, everybody. So today is May the 31st, 2024. I have been watching a interview that happened last night. Bullhorn Betty interviewed Seth Rogers. Yes, Tony Mathis was there lurking, sitting there like a spider, ready to hop on his first opportunity to be YouTube famous. But that aside, um, there was some incredibly interesting information to come out of this interview. Incredibly interesting. Now, most of you have noticed I've been radio silent for quite a while. Part of that I blame on the Colorado mountains. Who can resist that, right? So part of it is simply not be, being busy, having a delightful little cherub in my arms, being granny. But the other reason for my silence is I'm conflicted and I'm disturbed about Seth Rogers, the the role of Tony Mathis, the dramatic, can I say dramatic change in Katie Proudfoot and her pit bull, Christopher Proudfoot. It, this is so bizarre. As a as a person who I'm a people watcher, right? I watch people, I look at patterns of interaction. Um, the dynamics, it's been a dramatic game of chess. And some of you know what I'm talking about. The family systems manipulation, the narcissistic control, the gaslighting, it is shocking how clearly on display it all is. And the game board has been has dramatically been altered, right? Or has dramatically altered. We started with a fairly simple cause and effect. We recognized there's missing child. The story Katie Proudfoot is telling is bull, you know what, or here in Texas, horse, you know what, because horse, you know what, is piled high compared to cow poop. So the horse shit being laid down by Christopher Proudfoot and Katie Proudfoot is not it's simply not believable. I have zero illusion that the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, they do not believe these two people. Trust me, they don't believe them. We can't forget the virtue signalers. They're doing their work. They're in this world to spread goodness and light, and that's what they're busy doing. But in the meantime, as people jump on the Chris and Katie bandwagon about how special and wonderful and great they are, which please, all of you guys, could you just take a step back? You are being manipulated. And if you believe these people, Christopher and Katie Proudfoot, if you believe their story, if you truly listen to them and you accept their story as authentic and true, then it might be a good prediction that you yourself may have some trauma in your background. People that have been manipulated, people that grow up where gaslighting, even physical abuse is a common occurrence in a home, they're far more likely to be open to the manipulations, the contemporary manipulations that get you into abusive relationships, get you into difficult family scenarios, that find you at work being manipulated by an abuser who works in your same office. So we kind of have to be on guard that if if we did grow up in a particular type of home, and being at the mercy of a person dealing with a personality disorder or mental health problem, their manipulation sort of trained you and primed you to accept BS, to accept the manipulation. And I'm telling you, there is, if you take all the players out of the picture, if you disregard Katie and Chris and Seth, just take the people out, blur their faces out. If you only look at the facts of the story. Now, one would think that if you're going to go on any number of YouTube channels and television interviews and you tell a story, one would expect that this is the story, in fact, that you've told the police. So I'm going to assume that what they've said publicly is exactly what they told the cops. So I could be wrong. Maybe they're that dumb. Maybe they told the cops one thing, told YouTube people something different. But as it stands, I'm going with just the story they've told publicly multiple times. That's all I'm going by. If that is true, and that's what they told the police, they have a serious problem. Katie and Christopher, it is my opinion, you will be arrested. It hasn't happened yet, but it's coming. The reality is that the story that you told is simply impossible. It's not real. That didn't happen. The thing that they recently did with their story is they changed the story about the doors and the sofas, the location of furniture in the house, the potential likelihood that Sebastian could have left out of the front door, the side door. Nancy Grace nailed your asses down. She nailed you down on the doors and the furniture and which doors needed a combination and which doors needed a key entry. She nailed you guys down. Not on that one point only. She nailed you down on 19 different paths of egress for you guys. 19 paths where you could have said, no, but it could have been this. And she got you. You guys you have messed up and you don't even recognize how badly. Now, all of that aside, I'm conflicted about Seth and Tony Mathis. That is part of the reason why I've kind of stood down, why I did stand down and back away from this, because I think the addition of Tony Mathis, that he came in as game master, in my opinion. He came in and he looked at this chessboard of people and he could see where Chris and Katie, well, they were close to, they were in check. He came in and in a matter of weeks, literally weeks, completely realigned the chessboard. He now has Seth playing on the side of Christopher and Katie. Bizarre. I sat back for a while and I said, okay, I can't make any more videos about this because I am unsure of my opinion. And I sat back and I watched and I considered so many different things. One thing I considered was this: is Seth working with the police, right? We've heard a lot about how, no, the police aren't telling me anything. And yet, jackass Christopher Proudfoot goes up and says, oh, the police are sharing everything with me and Katie. We know everything. I don't know why they're not sharing with Seth. And I thought, yeah, it's possible that they were at the time. I don't think now, but at the time it is possible that, the cops were asking Seth for his help, trying to get some clarification on some points from Christopher and Katie, tried to build up their confidence and such. So that was one thing. I ultimately decided I was wrong about that possibility. So I don't know what Tony Mathis's role is, okay, but I am certain that I'm not going to simply believe that Christopher Proudfoot, who is really suspect 2, but Katie is suspect 1, Christopher being suspect 2, I don't believe that Tony Mathis being a crane operator and suspect 2 being a crane operator, I don't care if it's in different states. That's not a coincidence, y'all. I don't believe that can be a coincidence. Somehow these two know each other. Somehow I think Seth is being heavily manipulated by this group. And I think Tony Mathis is the snake, Seth. You let the snake in your house. You invited him in. You welcomed him in. So I think that Tony Mathis has severely hurt Seth's cause. I think Tony has caused a lot of people to turn on Seth. And I think he is building Seth up. He's here in Texas, people say he's blowing smoke up his, you know what, puffing him up and making him think he's tough and strong and, Billy Badass. Which makes him invaluable when Seth is feeling weak and unsure and frightened and scared. To have somebody come in and call you boss man, talk to the boss man. He's the boss man. Just stop, Tony. There may be people out there who listen to that and think, oh, that's such a good friend. Yeah, that's such a good friend. That's bullshit. Me and you know it. It's bull. What you're doing, you're up to no good. And it is clear you're up to no good. So I've been on the fence about Seth because I thought Chloe was really credible. And I didn't much like Heather, but I thought Chloe was incredibly credible. And it has just been a mess. And with the restructuring of the chessboard by Tony Mathis, Game Master, you now have a very happy, giddy Katie Proudfoot and Christopher Proudfoot. Christopher Proudfoot is suddenly everybody's best daddy. He's suddenly so logical and rational and calm. And Katie is giggling and being the coquettish little Southern belle, right? That Georgia peach. So you're going to tell me that as Seth loses ground, loses support, as Seth is decompensating emotionally, losing control of things, that Christopher and Katie are blossoming into Mr. and Ms. America? Are any of you feeling manipulated? Because I feel terribly manipulated. And that is why I stepped back and I said, no, I can't keep up. I got to know for sure what I believe, right? So now we get this incredibly important interview from Bullhorn Betty. And I am now absolutely certain of my position. Zero problem with my position. We see in this interview, we see a father grieving his child. He's crying over food bars. He starts talking about Sebastian's snacks that he likes, right? Because Betty asked him, what kind of snacks does he like? Because of that stupid ass, oh, well, he's 15, we went and got snacks. Okay, Betty asks him, what kind of snacks would you get or whatever. And so Seth goes into a long explanation, that is very natural family type stuff, Like, do you want to go to the store? And Sebastian says, not really. And then Seth says, well, if you don't go, I'm not going to get your special items that you like. But if you go with me, then we'll get something special and maybe go out to eat later. It's very family loving, normal type description of a regular life, right? So he's talking about this, and he looks up at the cabinet. Seth looks up at the cabinet, and he starts talking about what's still there in the cabinet. And he says that Sebastian had just finished one box of something. I don't remember what it is. Just finished one box of this snack, but there's a full box up there, and he breaks down crying. That, you guys, is authentic. That's authenticity. People that are liars, people that are providing a role, they're being contrived in their grief or whatever. It never occurs to them that talking about a box of cereal bars will trigger your tears, your grief, your breakdown. But that's exactly what happened. When my grandpa died, I saw my grandma came out with the clothes that they were going to take to the funeral home for him to be buried in. And his shoes, I just lost it. I don't know why. I saw his suit. I saw it. They talked about whether they wanted him to be buried with his watch, which he was really proud of because it signified like 30 years at one company. But there was something about the shoes. And when I saw his shoes, I just broke down crying. Like, just boom. I don't know why. Who knows why? Who knows? People are weird. Who knows why Seth is crying over a box of cereal bars? Because it was a connection to Sebastian. It was an innocent but authentic connection to Sebastian. And when he thought of those cereal bars, he envisioned Sebastian being excited at the grocery store, getting home and excitedly celebrating when Seth said, yes, you can have a cereal bar. And he gets it and he dances around with happiness and joy to open up his cereal bar. It wasn't the cereal bar. It was all the memories connected to that preference that Sebastian had in his life. So that was a moment of authenticity. And I was like, wow, I am a bad person to have doubted this guy. Now, I don't think so. That was kind of my own weak moment, right? But I think it reiterated it. It let me know, no. This guy is telling the truth. I'm convinced of it. I'm convinced of it after this interview. I remain convinced that Tony Mathis is a snake. And I don't know what the hell you're doing, Tony, but get out of people's lives. You're hurting them. You don't. Oh, Christopher may be your little buddy, but a lot of people have friends that murdered people. I had a friend, the son of my mom's very best friend. He murdered his girlfriend, cut her up, and buried her in a suitcase in Odessa, Texas. So people kill people that are your friends. Just because someone's your friend, it doesn't mean they're not capable of killing. So you may want to sit back and check yourself on your motivations, why you have befriended Seth Rogers and what you are orchestrating. You better be careful. You could come under suspicion. You've put yourself in the middle of the Caleb Harris disappearance. Bad move in my opinion. How is it that you go from knowing the father of a missing son to suddenly knowing the father of another missing son? What's happening here? What's happening here? So I want to play a clip. I don't know if Bullhorn Betty, if she strikes channels for doing like reaction videos or clips. But Betty, please don't strike me. Please don't. I'm not going to play the whole video. I'm going to tell everyone to go to your channel, watch the whole thing. It truly, truly is probably one of the most important interviews that's been done with Seth, in my opinion. People will disagree with me on that, I'm sure. But there was a lot of really good information that came out of this interview, people. You got to go watch the whole thing. It really is worth it. I'm I'm not kidding. So I decided not to do a no thumbnail with this because I continue to ask myself, who are the real snakes in the life of Sebastian? Who are the real snakes? There's a big group of people that claim it is Seth. There's a large group of people, although dwindling because of Tony Mathis, there's a group of people that believe that Seth is the innocent, another victim, but that Christopher Proudfoot is the snake. And there's a growing number of people that are convinced that Katie Proudfoot is the culprit. And virtually no one believes that Sebastian walked out the front door, Chris. He didn't walk out the front door. And you are the spokesman for your wife. Because when the cops come knocking, when your cops arrest your wife, you don't want her to contradict things that she said before. So if you're the mouthpiece, if you're the talker, if you're the one that's spreading all the bullshit, that can't be used against her during prosecution in a court of law. You're not so smart, Christopher. All right, let's watch this clip. It's absolutely good job, Betty. This is a great interview, but here's something important that I think came out of this.
I was 7 years without a girlfriend.
Make sure my sound and my sound booster is turned up because it's kind of quiet video. Hold on just a second. Oh, that's why. Okay. I want to go back a little bit.
Much happened.
Ooh, now it's too loud.
And I wish I had had more money. I wish I had a different
He's talking about divorce.
thought process. Because I just wanted to be in my son's life. And I didn't think that my son deserved not to have his mother in his life.
He's talking about the divorce, playing dirty, the reports of the divorce. Katie's written story, but Seth's divorce story is not out on Reddit. That's what I'm telling you. It's a great interview. So much new information. You got to go watch it. Okay.
You talk about, obviously it was, and of course it's been plastered all over social media. So, even I know about the divorce proceedings and how
Actually, I'd like to say something about that. It's funny how every one of her declarations that she wrote is out there. None of my declarations are out there. So everybody's only getting her written side of the divorce.
So it sort of suggests, right, that Christopher and Katie Proudfoot are the ones that are leaking this information.
But nobody sees any of mine out there. I really think it's funny that that's out there on Reddit.
Agreed.
My stuff isn't out there on Reddit.
Agreed,
the
Seth.
stuff that I submitted.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. It seems like it's a one-sided narrative, for sure.
And I'll tell you right now, if people really want to look, they can look at mine because all of my declarations aren't written by me. I refuse to write anything bad about that lady. I refused. What happened behind closed doors, what she put me through, the hell that she put me through. I didn't have a single, we're talking about, I was 7 years without a girlfriend after the divorce. I didn't even.
7 years. 7 years after the divorce, no girlfriend for a young man. 7 years. Why? I had a colleague long time ago. I had a colleague who told me probably one of the worst stories of marital abuse that I had ever heard. He tied her up, cut her with a knife, tied her son up, and then to get her son tied and free, horrible things. She and her son were locked in their house when he went to work. When she left, when she finally got away from him, the night that they left, she, in her heart, she said, I knew that me and my son were probably going to die. That I probably would not, my plan would probably not work and we would end up dead. But I knew that I had to get out and save him, that it was far worse to stay in the house than to try to leave and get killed. She willingly did this. Now, that should tell you how bad the living situation was, right? Thankfully, she did. She was able to get away. She had a plan. She basically went underground for 5 years. During that time, she had her name changed, her son's name changed. She got plastic surgery and rebuilt a complete, like something out of a movie, just like totally rebuilt. But the point of the story is this: she never, ever, ever remarried, and she would never go on a date unless another couple was with her. What is that? That's trauma. That's terror. And she would tell me the stories about how when she was dating this man, he was so wonderful and he was so kind, he was so sweet, and he came from such a good family. And she said about 3 years into their marriage, he just lost his mind and never developed trust again in the opposite sex.
You know, I wasn't looking for it. No. I mean, it takes time to heal from trauma, from abuse. And I was good living in my sanctuary, my house. The only person that came into my house was my son. This is the safest place he knew because he felt safe here. Of course, he's going to feel safe in my sanctuary because he had his own little sanctuary here too. You want to know why he slept all the time when he was here? I didn't give him sleep aids.
So, in the CPS files, Sebastian told one of the CPS workers the only place that he felt safe was at his dad's house. That's why he's talking about that.
At my hour, I do it myself so that I can get to sleep a little bit easier. Stuff that he was to use to sign off. And home remedies, he had ages at the school, still every 4. I'd rather give him a cup of coffee instead of you're giving him kids.
Yeah, you wanted good, wholesome remedies to
something happened, and then all of a sudden, he has no idea what meds he's supposed to be on or anything else. He's a single problem.
Okay, so this whole section that I'm fast forwarding through, this whole section, a really great piece of evidence that Seth has educated himself on ADHD, autism, the types of medications that are used, alternate homeopathic medications like coffee, drinking a cup of coffee every 2 or 3 hours, has a paradoxical effect on people with ADHD or impulse control problems. Coffee can act as a sedative rather than a stimulant to people that have truly authentic ADHD or impulse control problems. So he's having this discussion that his child took none of these medicines for 8 years. And then Katie and Chris and the schools began really pushing that he needed to be medicated. And Seth apparently learned about homeopathic ways to manage. He talks about routines, predictability in the environment, mirroring, using coffee. He talks about this. He clearly educated himself, and he becomes tearful the frustration of fighting Katie over this medication issue. Again, authenticity.
So you kind of hit on something, and I was going to be getting into your relationship with Katie a little further down in this, but you said some things that kind of perked my curiosity. Was Katie abusive to you?
Boom. It's what we want to know, right? Everybody kind of seeing Christopher Proudfoot's behaviors, hearing the way he talks about others and how he interacts with others, we all felt like, yeah, this is an abusive ass, right? But nobody really knows about Katie. Is she a victim? Who is she? She has said very little, y'all. That woman has said very little. The mouth of the South, Christopher Proudfoot, he's center stage, not Katie. Katie sits back with her mouth shut the majority of the time. And Katie, you probably need to do it more, because the last interview that you did, you sounded ridiculous. Anyway, was Katie abusive to Seth in the marriage? There's a lot of abuse, right? There's physical abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. There's a lot of different types of abuse that can happen. Listen to this, and then imagine this person that he had to live with that caused him to avoid women for 7 years. And Christopher Proudfoot, what we've heard from him, the two of them living in the same home, imagine the chaos in that home. And Sebastian trying to negotiate living there.
She had a drinking problem.
What?
When you say abusive, she was active duty Navy.
Okay, so she had a drinking problem. So all of you that listened to the interview the other night and you said, gosh, it sounds like Katie is slurring her words. I think she must be medicated. I know I would need to be medicated if my child went missing. Poor Katie. She's medicated for the loss of her delightful son. Oh, really? You think that's what it is? Or listen again. Katie's drunker than Cooter Brown. Okay? During that interview, she sounds like she is drunk as a skunk. People that are medicated, let's say using Xanax or something like that, because the anxiety and the fear for the loss of her child is so overwhelming and there's panic and heartbreak, those people take that medication, but typically they cry, right? That's why they're taking it, is because their system is absolutely on fire. Every cell in their body it's uncomfortable, right? They're anxious and they're hyperventilating and they're pacing the floor and they're sobbing, crying. The medication calms some of that, and then the only thing that really comes through is more controlled crying, weeping, maybe some fears, right? Now, if she were to take a double dose or a triple dose, she is going to be conked out, asleep, period. That is not the Miss Katie Proudfoot, Georgia Belle, that we heard the other night. She was giggling. She was laughing. She was telling stupid, absurd stories that had zero ring of truth. It was a shit show that nobody called out. I don't know why. So this man is telling you she had a drinking problem. And he says, she's active Navy. Do you think she's physical?
And, their slogan nowadays is, I'm a sailor with a drinking problem instead of being a drinker with a sailing problem. You want to know about emotional, physical, all that, you can check all those. I mean, I dealt with a lot. Being a stay-at-home dad, and I'm not doing a man's job, and getting told this all the time, that she does a man's job. No, you're not doing a man's job, honey. You're literally an electrician. It's a profession.
All right. Does that sound authentic? Does that sound real? Absolutely. To me, it does. And it fits right in line with Christopher Proudfoot's blustering, be a man, telling a little 4-year-old boy, hitting him across the face, oh, you got to learn to be a man, stand up. No, you idiot. He's a baby. Ugh, I want to kick him in the shins. Okay. So in a weird way, or an expected way, if you're a mental health expert, or at least know, this field, Katie is the mirror image of the feminine. Katie is the mirror image of Christopher, right? So with all of the over identification with gender roles, all his, tough guy bullshit because he's a man, right? Katie has the exact mentality. She is looking for a man like Christopher Proudfoot. She believes that men should be tough and abusive and all that. But it does sound like maybe she believes that she should be in the victim role. Now, she's fighting Seth. She's getting drunk and being melodramatic. But if you've ever known this type of, relationship, two people get into this relationship where men are men and women are women, and they're both drinking, their fights can be particularly vicious, right? They can be particularly difficult. And so without Seth really knowing it, he's really described the pattern behavior that, police officers are trained on. So I thought this was so telling for him, to say that she was mocking Seth. She was attacking Seth because he was the one that was staying at home with Sebastian because she was out deployed on a ship, right? Well, I don't know about you, but as a mother, as a person that has children, has a family, if that had been me, that had to be gone from home because of work, I would have been absolutely grateful that my husband would be willing to be a stay-at-home and take care of my special needs child. I would look up to that man. I would say that's a man who's making some very important choices, right? I don't typically buy into all this woman power stuff. Not all of it, some of it. I mean, let's face it. Okay, I'm an old lady. I'm part of the, people that fought for the right to work in an office and get into, the top penthouse levels and try to break the glass ceiling. I fought for that right. I'm part of that. But I think we've gone really way too far. I think that if a man says, oh, I love that dress, you look so nice today, I'm not going to be breaking my neck to go file a sexual harassment claim against the guy. That's you're being reactionary and you have no purpose in that. Who cares? So what? Anybody can look at another person and appreciate their appearance. There's nothing harassing about that. Now, could it be lewd? Could it be said in a nasty way? Of course. But a man opening a door for a woman in no way is an assault on her, humanity. And I think it's interesting. Well, so from my own point of view, so when I got into my PhD program, I actually had an infant she was several months old, because you make your application and then it takes about a year for the whole process to work its way through. And then about a year afterwards, you get a phone call or a letter saying, you've been accepted or you're rejected from the program. And so when I was accepted into the program, when I got my letter, it was actually, my daughter was like 3 months old, like she was little. And I said, oh my God, I almost forgot that I had applied for the program. And then I thought, I'll never be able to do this with a baby. Like that can never happen. My husband, who's considered like a man's man, football, carried the winning touchdown, at the state championship game. The man, fun guy. People like him. He's a good guy. And does men's job, quotation marks. And he said to me, look, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Like, you got to go do this and we'll figure it out. We can handle this. We can do this. It's not a big deal. It's just a baby. We'll figure this out. And I spent the first couple of years, like literally 3 a.m, sitting in the middle of my bed, studying, holding a bottle to a baby, right? It was looking back on that time, it was a circus. My husband was the only man in the oil field who had a baby seat behind him in his truck. Okay. So he was incredible. He was a single dad for about 3 years while I worked and finally, got my PhD. So being the kind of man that you're willing to step up and take responsibility and full care of your child with special needs or not, being that kind of man, that's real. That's authentic love. That's a very powerful, strong sense of responsibility. That's exactly the substance of human being that any woman would really want. It's the top level of macho, in my opinion. So the fact that Katie would get drunk and would tease Seth and make fun of him and, say, you're not a man. You stay at home like a little lady. I do a man's job. What, Katie? What? Why are you bragging about how you're a man? It's dumb. Okay, so without Seth really knowing what he's saying, he's really revealing some truly authentic reality that he is a good guy. I think he is a good guy, and I don't think we're being played by him. And I think Katie is, snaky Katie is what I think. I think Christopher Proudfoot found his equal. Found his match, and the story is told now. Usually, I'm going to say that after I get done because I don't want to get in trouble. Okay, so Seth's talking about Katie was abusive in any manner of ways, and that one of the preferred ways for her to abuse him was she would get drunk. And then she would taunt him and tease him that he was, a PUSSY, that she did a man's job, but Seth was a nobody, a nothing, tore down his self-esteem, tore down his identity. When the truth is, he did step up to the plate to try to do the right thing with a kid. I get the feeling Seth doesn't come from a very sophisticated background. And yet when he talks specifically about Sebastian and his special needs, he does seem to know what he's talking about. So that leads me to believe, he educated himself. He listened when the professionals talked to him about Sebastian and what he was dealing with.
All right. That profession is not limited by your gender. I'm very... There's 2 jobs in the world, maybe 3, but a man's job is to protect his family, and a man can impregnate a female. female is supposed to take care of their children. All right. Very Pacific gender roles in my life. The way I was raised. Everything else is a profession. All right. I got tired of it. So when she asked for the divorce, I was good. I was like, please. I just want to be in my son's life.
May I ask you something? And I just want to ask you this kind of, because this has kind of unfolded itself like over the last 24 hours. Did Katie file for divorce on February 26th?
I have no idea. I'd have to pull out the records and take a look at when she.
What day? When was it that Sebastian went missing? Do we know? I want to verify before I say this because I don't want to say the wrong thing here. February 26th. He's been gone 3 months. So apparently there's some information out there that Bullhorn Betty knows about, that February 26, 2024 is when Sebastian went missing, right? And now Seth has just told us February 26, 2016, Katie filed for divorce. That is pretty Hollywoodish, right? It is shocking. I'm so uncomfortable with this coincidence that is throughout this case. Same thing with the Chris Watts case. You remember that? The one to name the baby Nico. If you put together, Nicole and Christopher Lee, then you get Nico and Lee, you get Nicole. I mean, all kinds of that silly nonsense, right? I don't like this. I don't like that you got Tony Mathis, Christopher Proudfoot, both doing the crane works stuff. Hate that. I hate this. February the 26th, Sebastian goes missing. 5 years ago, February 26th, Katie's filing divorce. Was this an act of anger from Katie? Is this some psychopathic kind of undertone here where she's acutely aware? And remember, Sebastian was supposed to be coming to live with Seth, right? And he was going to be there full time, forever, never, never. Was this more of Katie's abuse of Seth? Denying Seth the only thing that he really wanted, which was his son? I mean, we've heard Katie grew up in some very difficult circumstances. Sometimes there's no limits. I think that my understanding of the agreement was that both Seth and Katie agreed that it was best for Sebastian to go live with Seth, right? I think that's what Christopher Proudfoot, the story he told, was that it was a mutual agreement by both Seth and Katie that it was best for Sebastian to go live with Seth. I think it was also that I think Christopher believed that his daughter Faith would come live with him once Sebastian was out of the home. I also believe that may have been in play. But if Christopher is forcing Katie to give Sebastian to Seth, and she is still harboring intense feelings of hate for Seth, was this a final FU to Seth? I don't know. But I have a hard time accepting coincidences. All right. So I am, let's see. I am going to, hold on just 1 minute. I'm going to give the link to this interview because there's so much, such a good interview. I'm going to post it, paste. All right. It is, oh no, I'm going to have to put it in the, description. So I'll put the link to Bullhorn Betty's, video interview. I'll put the link in the description beneath this video because this is pre-recorded. It's not live. It's pre-recorded, and then I'm gonna premiere it. And the link to this interview is going to be in the description of the video. Really, I cannot encourage you enough to go watch this whole interview. It's very good. It's got a lot of new information, things that at least new for me, things I didn't know about. And other than that, I hope you guys all have a really great day. There was one thing I was going to say. There was a story, a commonality, a way to remember some of these personality disorders, like when we were in graduate school, a way to remember some of these personality disorders, for tests and things like that. And one of the things that people used to say is the antisocial personality disorder marrying the dependent personality disorder, you have a news story, a leading news story at 10 o'clock news. Those two together are volatile. It's like nitroglycerin. You get a dependent personality person living with dependent personality disorder, person living with antisocial personality disorder. You put them together in any type of relationship, you got a violent news story. It's going to happen. All right. You guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. It is Friday. We've had our terrible storms, and, hopefully the weekend will be sunny and happy. And until then, I'll talk to you later.